The theme which this Shabbat's Torah reading begins speaks of the importance of having an attitude of gratitude. And when we are grateful, we have a much more uplifted form of living. We are happy, we are filled with joy when we can acknowledge each day the manifold reasons why we ought to be grateful. And the Torah speaks of a farmer who has spent so much of the season out there in the field, preparing the field, planting in the field, and now reaping the yield of his field. He stands humbly in the temple before God. And he makes a proclamation that goes back to biblical times. He puts his success in the context of his people and all the contributing factors, and mostly the hand and the guidance of Hashem that has given us the ability to be successful. And he presents the first fruits, the very first fruits of his labor, to the Kohen. And the verse tells us, "V'lakacha kohen atena miyadecha," and the Kohen will take the basket from your hands. From your hands becomes so relevant to this mitzvah that the Talmud tells us whenever there is a gift that is alluded to in the Torah without specifying what gift it is, if it says the gift of the hand, it refers to the first fruits, which are an expression of gratitude. Why the emphasis on the hands? Well, what is interesting about the human anatomy is that there is a hierarchy of limbs. Our head is placed at the very top of our being. That's the seat of our mind, because the mind, moach shalit halev, has to be in control. Below that is the heart, the seat of emotions, which are guided by our intellectual understanding, our meditations of the connections to Hashem. And then the functional limbs, the rest of the body that fulfills and puts into practice and acts out what we are thinking and what we are feeling. The limbs of the body are placed in a very organized way, one above the other, a hierarchy of importance. But the hands? Where are the hands? Well, the hands can be lifted up way above our heads, and the hands can stoop way below our feet. They can be the lowest of the low and the highest of the high. Hands have no fixed place. As the verse tells us, V'hayadayim yedei Esav, the hands can be the hands of Esau, violent hands. The prophet Isaiah says, Yedeichem domim mileu, your hands are hands filled with blood. Hands can act in a terrible way. And yet, when the Kohen reaches out to bless the Jewish people, it's called Nasiat Kapayim. He lifts up his hands in giving blessing. And just when we say Kiddush and then wash our hands for the eating of the meal, we say a blessing. Asher Kiddushan, God, you have given us the special mitzvah to sanctify our hands. Hands can be uplifted and sanctified depending on how we use our hands. Our hands can elevate, can uplift, can embrace, and hands can suppress and push aside, maim, and hurt. And so the Kohen looked at our hands as we expressed our gratitude to Hashem. And he said, what kinds of hands produced success? Are these the hands of a winner who has lifted up everyone around him too? A person who has made sure that the world is enriched and supported and added to by the work of our hands? Or God forbid, has our success come at the expense of others? We have pushed down others in order to elevate ourselves. And such a magnificent thought as we enter into these last 2 weeks before Rosh Hashanah, the whole theme of gratitude, to start thinking so deeply about how our successes are only there by the grace of Hashem, to recognize our relationship with Hashem, and to express our gratitude daily, as we do in the first words of our day, Modeh ani lefanecha, I thank you, Hashem, for giving me another day. And even as we express our gratitude, to examine our hands, to look at our hands and to say, well, what are the gifts of our hands? What are the accomplishments of our hands? Do our hands build or do our hands destroy? Are we the avenue and the mechanism by which this world is enriched, or God forbid, are we detracting? May we enter into this last period in preparation for Rosh Hashanah with thoughts of gratitude and thoughts of truly evaluating the hands of man. Have a beautiful Shabbos.